I was scrolling on Reddit not too long ago and I saw the trailer for the new Alex Garland film Warfare. I watched it and headed down to the comments, and the first few were positive. You know, the movie looks cool, whatever. But then you scroll down a bit and you start to read some opinions that make you kind of scratch your head. So I wanted to come on here and talk about war movies, and I wanted to acknowledge up top that this conversation is going to attempt to be as apolitical as possible. I know that's not going to stop some of the comments on here, but hey, I tried. And also, this little essay here is only really scratching the surface of the topic. If you guys want more on this subject, I'm happy to keep talking about it, but for now, this is what I got. War movies have long held a powerful and polarizing place in the cinematic landscape. They're visceral, emotionally charged, and they often spark heated debates about their intent and their impact. At their best, they offer profound reflections on humanity's greatest conflicts. At their worst, they're accused of glorifying violence, perpetuating harmful ideologies, or serving as the dreaded P word, say it with me now, propaganda. So where do we draw the line between artistic expression, moral critique, and political messaging? One of the most contentious questions surrounding war films is whether they could ever truly be anti-war. Critics argue that the very act of depicting war, with its inherent drama and spectacle, risks making it look thrilling or heroic, even when the filmmaker's intentions are otherwise. Others believe war films can effectively expose the horrors of combat and the futility of violence, functioning as powerful indictments of humanity's capacity for cruelty. The discourse doesn't stop there. Some view certain films as blatant military propaganda designed to bolster recruitment or justify military actions. And this criticism is particularly sharp in the context of modern conflicts, where films like Lone Survivor and Zero Dark 30 are often reduced to the pithy critique popularized by the comedian Frankie Boyle. If you spend any time on the internet surrounding this subject, you will no doubt come across this quote. He said, "Not only will America go to your country and kill all your people, but what's worse is that they'll come back 20 years later and make a movie about how killing your people made their soldiers feel sad." And yet, for many viewers, war movies serve a different purpose entirely. They're not about recruitment or propaganda, but about storytelling. These films offer a window into extraordinary human experiences where morality, survival, and camaraderie are tested to their limits. For cinephiles like myself, war films are less about politics and more about the power of cinema. Watching these stories doesn't make me want to enlist or cheer for more conflict. Instead, they provoke questions, evoke empathy, and remind me of the complexities of the human condition. So in the rest of this video, I want to explore the philosophy of war films and their place in modern discourse. We'll examine the history of the genre, unpack the arguments for and against their perceived messaging, and consider how audience interpretation shapes the conversation. From universally acclaimed classics like Saving Private Ryan and Apocalypse Now to more polarizing works like Black Hawk Down or The Hurt Locker, we'll trace how these films reflect shifting attitudes toward war with each new conflict depicted. And this isn't about taking sides, but about navigating the gray areas. War films are as much about what they show as how we perceive them. They're mirrors held up to humanity, asking us to confront not only the battlefield, but the philosophies and ideologies that create it. So, what do you say? Let's dive in. The history of war films is as old as cinema itself. Over the decades, the genre has evolved alongside society's changing attitudes toward war. In the early days of filmmaking, war films often carried a sense of romanticism and patriotism. Silent classics like The Birth of a Nation from 1915, while controversial for its overt racism, pioneered large-scale battle sequences that would define the genre. And Wings from 1927, the first film to win an Academy Award for Best Picture, focused on World War I aviators and blended thrilling aerial combat with the themes of friendship and sacrifice. These films often glorified war as a noble endeavor, aligning with the nationalistic sentiments of their time. And take note of that phrase. The outbreak of World War II ushered in an era where cinema became an essential tool for rallying public support. Hollywood collaborated closely with the US government to produce propaganda films like Frank Capra's Why We Fight series from 1942 to 1945, which aimed to educate and inspire soldiers and civilians alike. At the same time, narrative films such as Casablanca or Mrs. Miniver used personal stories to highlight the moral imperative of fighting fascism. The war's immediacy meant that these films often avoided graphic depictions of violence, focusing instead on heroism and the greater good. And in the aftermath of World War II, filmmakers began exploring the psychological and societal impacts of conflict. The Best Years of Our Lives from 1946 examined the struggles of returning veterans, offering a more sobering perspective on the cost of war. This period marked the beginning of a shift toward war films that questioned the glory traditionally associated with battle. And the Vietnam War profoundly changed the tone of war cinema. Films like Apocalypse Now, Platoon, and Full Metal Jacket rejected the romanticized depictions of earlier decades, instead portraying war as chaotic, dehumanizing, and morally ambiguous. These films reflected the growing disillusionment with war in American society and highlighted the psychological toll on the soldiers. For a really fascinating listen, I actually recommend this Ringer podcast called Do We Get to Win This Time? It's a reported look at how Hollywood has depicted and defined the Vietnam War over time, and how those films still resonate today, both culturally and politically. In the post-9/11 era, war films have become more contentious, with audiences divided on their intent and their messaging. Movies like Black Hawk Down, The Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30 have been praised for their technical achievements and immersive storytelling, but criticized for their perceived glorification of military actions or omission of political context. The debate over whether these films serve as propaganda or critiques of war remains central to their reception. More recent films, such as the 2022 adaptation of All Quiet on the Western Front, have returned to the genre's anti-war roots, emphasizing the senseless brutality of conflict. And meanwhile, this new film from Alex Garland, Warfare, continues to explore new ways of depicting war. Now, in the next section, I'm going to dive into the argument that war films, no matter their intent, risk becoming propaganda in the eyes of their audience.
Hey, I don't know if I can do this, okay? Hey! I got a family, and if I'm gonna shit in a bag for the rest of my life because I got shot after the war was over, that'd be pretty fucking stupid, wouldn't it, Major?
As we've already noted, war movies occupy a precarious space in the cultural landscape. They are inherently dramatic, depicting life and death stakes, camaraderie, and profound moral questions. But this very drama raises a difficult question. Can a war film ever truly be anti-war? Or does the spectacle of conflict inevitably glorify it? This debate has led to two prevailing perspectives on the role of war films in shaping public opinion about war. One of the most frequent criticisms of war films is that they serve as propaganda, either intentionally or unintentionally. And this argument hinges on the idea that any depiction of war that includes heroism, sacrifice, or victory risks glorifying those actions and inspiring admiration rather than revulsion. War films often collaborate with military institutions for access to equipment, personnel, and technical advice, which critics argue comes with strings attached. The Department of Defense, for example, has provided significant support to films like Top Gun, Black Hawk Down, and American Sniper, leading some to question the impartiality of their narratives. Films that focus on modern conflicts, such as Zero Dark 30, have faced scrutiny for their portrayal of controversial topics like enhanced interrogation techniques or torture. Critics argue that by dramatizing these methods without sufficient condemnation, such films risk legitimizing them in the public eye. Similarly, Lone Survivor and 12 Strong were criticized for framing U.S. military actions in a way that sidelined the political and human cost of those operations. This concern is further amplified by the iconic imagery and thrilling action sequences that characterize many war films. Even films with ostensibly anti-war messages can be co-opted into narratives of heroism and nationalism. Consider the haunting D-Day beach landing in Saving Private Ryan. While it's often lauded for its unflinching realism, some viewers interpret it as a tribute to the valor of American soldiers, blurring the line between critique and celebration. And on the other side of the debate, many argue that war films can effectively convey anti-war messages by focusing on the futility, the trauma, the moral ambiguity of war. Classics like All Quiet on the Western Front from 1930 and the 1922 version as well, Come and See, and Paths of Glory emphasize the dehumanizing brutality of combat and the senselessness of violence. These films seek to strip away the veneer of glory and reveal the devastating cost of war, both in soldiers and civilians. More recent examples, such as Catherine Bigelow's The Hurt Locker, have been interpreted as anti-war statements despite their immersive depictions of combat. By focusing on the psychological toll of war on its protagonist, the film underscores the addictive, the destructive nature of violence. Similarly, Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket use surrealism and dark humor to highlight the absurdity and the horror of war. Now, ultimately, the impact of a war film depends heavily on its audience. A filmmaker's intent can only go so far, but how viewers interpret and internalize the film's message is what determines its cultural footprint. For some, Saving Private Ryan is an anti-war masterpiece, and for others, it's a stirring tribute to the greatest generation. For some, American Sniper is a nuanced exploration of PTSD, and for others, it's a one-sided glorification of American military might. As we can see, the potential for misinterpretation is a challenge that all war films face. Visual storytelling is inherently subjective, and the emotional power of cinema can evoke a wide range of responses. The same scenes that evoke horror in one might inspire admiration in another. This duality is what makes war films so compelling and so contentious. War films, like all art forms, exist in a complex space where interpretation is fluid and deeply personal. We may come to them seeking different things: catharsis, a deeper understanding of history, a critique of human nature, or even a glimpse of bravery in the face of horror. And yet, despite the ongoing debate about whether war films are ever truly anti-war, one thing remains clear. These films continue to resonate with audiences, provoking thought and stirring emotions. The central question of whether war films glorify war or serve as an indictment of humanity's darker impulses doesn't have a simple answer. I'm sorry if you came to this video looking for one. For every film like Saving Private Ryan, which captures the brutal reality of war, there's a film like Black Hawk Down, which for some becomes a heroic retelling of military valor. Now, that's not a knock against Black Hawk Down. I actually love Black Hawk Down, but you get my point. The line between critique and glorification is often blurred, and while some may see one side more clearly than the other, the complexities of these films cannot be easily dismissed. As viewers, it's crucial to approach these films critically, acknowledging their potential to shape our perceptions of war and those who fight in it. A war film may not be a call to action, nor is it necessarily a condemnation of violence. It could be both. It could be a mirror reflecting the conflicting emotions, ideals, and traumas of those who experience war, as well as the cultures that create and sustain it. And as much as we may try to draw a definitive line between propaganda and protest, the power of war films lies in their ability to provoke complex, often contradictory emotions and discussions. In this way, cinema, especially war films, remains a powerful medium for storytelling. Even in the face of polarized opinions, it could foster empathy, provoke self-reflection, and challenge the assumptions we bring to the screen. Whether or not we agree on the politics of a particular film, we can't deny that these films are an essential part of how we engage with and understand both history and human nature. The future of war films will undoubtedly be shaped by the evolving cultural, political, and technological landscape. As the global stage changes, so too will the narratives we tell about war. But no matter how these stories evolve, one thing is certain: war films will continue to provide a platform for exploration, discussion, and reflection, encouraging us to question not just the nature of conflict, but also the stories we tell about those who live through it. As we move forward, we should look to cinema not as a vehicle for simple answers, but as a medium for complex, honest, and at times uncomfortable conversations. In a world that often oversimplifies the issues that define our time, war films remind us that some questions are worth grappling with, even when the answers remain elusive. Thank you all so much for watching this video. This has been one that I've been meaning to make for a little while now, and Alex Garland's Warfare coming out was just like the perfect opportunity to kind of like slot this into the schedule there. Let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are on war films. Can war films ever truly be anti-war? And does it matter? Do they need to aspire to be that? I don't think that movies should be pro-war, obviously, but is it something that war movies in particular, should be conscious of when they're being made? I'm curious your thoughts on this, and let me know if you want me to dive even further into this topic, because it is sort of endlessly fascinating, especially when you go through the history of war films throughout cinema. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out on the channel. As you can see, I'm still in my old apartment, and I'm going to be moving very, very soon. So the next time you see me, I might be in my whole new apartment, whole new setup, and I am looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to getting out of this apartment, and I will see you all next time.